Right. Good evening, everybody. It is a pleasure to be with you for our November program. A couple of announcements as we begin our time together. First of all, this past Sunday was the first of our Superior Entry Goal Watches with Clinton and Christina. And really, it started off with a bang. They saw a black-legged kitty wake, which was a nice find. I'm not sure. Was anybody there? Yeah, all right, excellent. So, a good spot. If you'd like to find out what they're going to see next, every Sunday in November at 10 a.m. they gather out at Superior Entry.
At where?
Superior Entry.
Oh, okay.
So on Wisconsin Point, all the way to the end.
Yeah.
If you'd like to contribute, bring a loaf of bread, I guess. All right. Or two, depending on conditions. And then lastly, by way of announcement, it is the time of year where we ask you all to renew your 2024 membership for Duluth AutWin. If you'd like to do that, you can visit our duluthautwin.org website, and there is a join or renew tab there. You can join online, make a payment online, or there's an address for a P.O. box as well if you'd like to send in a check that way. And if you've never joined before, it's a great opportunity to support our cause and support our generous and very good speakers that we're able to line up throughout the year for programs. What's that? And our membership number right now is 113, which we believe is an all-time high. So that's cool. Yeah, this is a time when we like to go around and share any observations that you've been having out there since the last time we gathered together. What have you been seeing? A road grouse.
Tonight, I saw two skunks going across the road.
I have grouse too in my apple trees growing.
Which?
In my apple tree, the grouse.
I gotta ask the whole group here. I follow the sightings at Hawk Ridge religiously, 3, 4, 5 times a day. Okay, and anybody here part of the count? Well, I sure have to thank you. They are just fabulous. Not only do they talk to raptors, but they list all the other ones as well. And they've seen a few that I still haven't seen at all yet, such as red bulls and pine grosbeaks. So I wonder if anybody here has been seeing them.
No.
Have you seen them up there? Have you been seeing them elsewhere? Is what my question is. Yeah.
I saw a group of them this morning over at Leicester.
Red bulls? Okay. Cool.
Snow bunting.
Snow buntings.
Yeah.
What do you have? Still?
Well, that's because the birds in her yard are feeding it.
Yes, yeah.
Highlight of my last couple of weeks was a group of, I didn't count the exact number, maybe 9 or 10 American tree sparrows were spending the day in my native plant garden. They were eating goldenrod seeds as far as I can tell, or whatever bugs were in there with them. There was one juvenile white crown sparrow in with them that was chasing them around occasionally.
Anything else you've been seeing?
Cooper's hawk put in the birds that are feeding.
Cooper's hawk, yeah. Oh, the black-legged coon. Yes, we know about that.
How about those magpies? Did someone see my dad?
Yeah, There was a magpie here. There was a scissor-tailed flycatcher out on that Knife River Road for 2 weeks. I want to say it was there, and I think somebody saw a magpie out that way as well. Yeah, so keep your eyes open because winter is going to descend. And speaking of winter, we are delighted to welcome Larry Weber here with us tonight to talk about this special time of year, really a micro season between the time when autumn beckons the trees to lose their leaves and the time in which winter brings that snow cover that lasts for months and months and months on end for us. And so we're delighted and happy to have you here, Larry, to talk about awesome AutWin, and there are books available this week.
That's your new book, isn't it?
Well, relatively speaking.
Relatively.
Yeah. I forget, when you get older, the years go by so fast, it's hard to say what year, but I believe it was 18 or maybe 19 when it first came out. And then, of course, we had the pandemic and so forth. So, AutWin is my own invention of a word, and there are others who use the term, but I don't think it's something that's different. I think we all notice it. I think we all notice there is a time after the leaf drop and before the snow cover, and that is a season of its own. And it's just an amazing time, and that's what we're in right now. I thought maybe with the way snow was coming a few days ago, I thought maybe we would have an earlier snow cover, but did anybody see the forecast? What's supposed to be happening like Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? 50 some degrees, yes. So I don't think we're going to get a snow cover at that time. AutWin some years only will last about a week. And then some other years it will stretch into December. Yes, so it's a weird time. It's hard to put an exact number on it. I have a friend who calls it not AutWin. I took those two words, autumn and winter, and put them together. He calls it finter. Fall and winter put together. You get the idea. Okay, please, if you have questions, let me know. I will easily go the whole time. But who's been to my talks before? Because I have a tendency to go longer than that. So I hope you made plans to not get home till midnight. Yeah. All right.
It might be winter by then.
Can we all see okay, or do we need to darken the whole scene? We all see okay? All right. Now, every time I use technology, something goes wrong. So let's just hope that something that goes wrong is a little bit later this time. All right, these are some typical autumn shots. Does anybody recognize this place? There's something on the picture that gives it away. Something that gives it away. That cabin gives it away. That's Teddy. That scene from, what is the name of that company? Trudy, something like that. Okay. Anyway, that's Teddy Gooch, and this is just an example, one of the many places that you'll see something like this. The color of autumn is mostly reds are in September, so you can tell when the picture was taken. The reds don't linger past the 1st of October that much in the trees. They do at other things, but not so much in the trees. This is the road I live on. I live in Harlan County, and forested on both sides of the road, and plenty of reds with the maples. And then we have seen things like this. Where were you? 2009, October 10. Okay, I had just gotten back from paddling in the Boundary Waters, and then all of a sudden we had this, what I call a two-season combined, where we had snow on October 10, covering all the green leaves and apples. It also is another example of covering those, but it also covered the red leaves of the red oak. And it covered the red leaves of the red maples. However, most of the time, this is the kind of scenes we see right here with red maple. Red maple, we always talk about the reds being maple being red, well, some red maples. Sugar maples are colorful, but they're usually not red like the red maples. There's a closer look at red maple, but you're going to see in a few minutes that's not always true. Then we have the red oaks. Red oaks kind of live up to their name of being red, but it all depends on where they're growing and how old they are. Okay, there's a closer look at the red oak. Where I live, we have an abundance of red oak. That's not true everywhere around, but it certainly is in my place in Carlton this tree. This right here, sumacs. Sumacs were just great this year. I did quite a bit of traveling in the latter part of October. Wait, see if I can never out of view or see red sumacs. Here's a closer look at the sumac. Okay, this is once again kind of a regular scene that you might expect, but it's a little hard to see what kind of tree it is that's red here. So we have to get closer and take a look at the leaf methodology. Dogwoods can be a variety of colors, but they do a good job being red. Then there is high bush cranberry. I just love high bush cranberry. It's not a cranberry, of course, it's a viburnum. And the leaves will be red. It looks something like a maple leaf. They will be red, and then they have an extra red with the red berries. Okay? How many are familiar with doing something with these red berries? I mean, very few people who do. What do you do with them?
Make cranberry sauce or
Okay. Somebody else? Somebody else said you do? What do you make with them?
Well, you can make some pretty good wine.
Oh, okay. I haven't tried the wine or the sauce, but I have done the jelly. And it's an excellent jelly. I find I get no competition. Nobody else wants to make their. And they're not hard to make. They are, I saw these as recently as yesterday. They are still out there. And the birds will eat them, but they don't seem to be in a hurry. They seem like it's down more on their list of what to eat. Then there's Virginia creeper, which is the 5 leaves of Virginia creeper. Here's a closer look at it. These are all what we see before we get to AutWin. Well, let's don't overlook this. Yeah, poison ivy is bright red. We usually think of that as being a colorful leaf of the order to is wrong. But it can also be yellow, and that's part of the interesting things of the fall leaves. That's red maple, right? What would you expect the color of red maple to be? How about yellow? I used to take my students out and tell them we go look for red maples, but then I said, you want to go further back in the woods? And we go further back in the woods, and the red maples there would be yellow. Reds will show up where it can be hit by the sun. So if you ever take a close look at the red leaves of autumn, they are at the edge of the woods, they're along the road, in some place where they get contrast. Okay, if you get a red maple back in the woods, it's not going to be red. American hazel is another interesting one. We have two kinds of hazels. Hazels are little small trees. My woods is just filled with them. This tall, maybe. They're just abundant. And we have two kinds of them. We have American hazel and we have beef hazel. The easiest way to tell them apart is to look at the fruit of them, the nut. Well, there's another way to tell them apart, and that is wait till autumn. The American hazel will turn red. Beef hazel will turn red. I have sites in my woods where they grow next to each other. One is red, one is yellow. Still haven't quite figured out why. But that's what happens with those hazels. Here's a sugar maple. Sugar maples, like I said, are often looked for as being the most colorful, and they are, but they're more likely to be yellow than to be orange or red. And here's one that does have some orange. And notice the rest of the woods. My woods have mostly sugar maples and red oaks, basswoods, things like that. And they get a lot of color, but it's the sugar maples that really take over some areas. White birch, same thing, being very yellow. There's stands of birch there. And then there is quaking aspen. Quaking aspen is a little bit later. In October, we have 3 periods of time that I look for every year. One of them is quaking aspen time. Quaking aspens will turn yellow, but they turn yellow kind of after the other ones have turned yellow. They're a little bit later. And you can see some before you get to October, but it's usually October, usually about the middle of October, that they really stand out as being yellow. Then we have another period of time later that I call the leaf drop, when all the leaves fall. I'll say something about that in a moment. And then we have, at the end of the month, we have tamarack time. Okay? This is the quaking aspen, and then we might see scenes like this. Once again, the picture was taken on the North Shore. And I think many of you probably have seen something very similar. This is a little bit later from the rest of the trees. Notice you don't see red leaves. Red leaves are a little bit earlier in the autumn colors. And there we see the creeping aspens. This is a path in my woods, and as we go through autumn, we see this, we see this, we see this, and then we see the leaf drop. The leaf drop, the big leaf drop every year, I usually say on my radio program, I try to predict it ahead of time, I usually say it between about the 15th and the 20th of October. I blew it this year. Well, it was later this year. It was like the 22nd to the 26th. And that's when the big bulk of leaves came down. And this is my backyard. You can see what I mean, big bulk of leaves that come down at that time. That is the beginning of autumn. Okay. When you see scenes like this, I don't do any breaking of leaves. Anybody else fall into that same category? I don't do any breaking of leaves. Mulching of them perhaps, but I'm not very ambitious. I just like it. AutWin is the time between the big leaf drop and the snow cover. Usually about October 15 to November 20. I wouldn't be surprised if this year we go past that November 20. Here's what AutWin would look like. One of the beauties of AutWin is that you can really see into the woods. You know, there's so much that's there that we don't see when the leaves are on the trees, and we don't see when there's a snow cover. But when it opens up like this, we can really see it well. There's another example of it there. And another one. This is, anybody recognize this tree from its shape? Very good. I'm impressed. Yeah, that's basswood. That's basswood. Basswoods often have a root growing out from the ground, coming up like such. But I didn't know this. I had an amazing basswood in my backyard a few years ago. It never repeated this. But October 12th, it was still green. October 13th, see if I got that. It's October 10th, it was still green. October 11th, it was yellow. October 12th, it seemed like it was embarrassed for being slow and then decided very quickly to move ahead. Okay, we get into AutWin. On the main green that we're going to see is the conifers. This is a picture of spruce along the lake, and something we see very often. But we see another conifer that's really showing up. Tamarack time, once again, I a little bit missed it this year. Tamarack time, I usually count on being somewhere around the 20th. I always told my students, anybody born around the 20th. Do you have anybody here who has a birthday about the 20th of October? Do you have anybody who has a birthday about the 20th of October? Because if you do, you should be named after Anyway, this is the scene we see. This year we were a little bit later than normal. The question often comes up, this is the only conifer that we have that drops its needles all at one time. There is another one. Anybody know the other one? It's not found here. It's found in the south. Say again? Cypress. Very good. I'm impressed. Okay. All right. This one will drop its needles all at one time. The question often comes up, why? Why does it choose to drop its needles all the time? There are different theories. I'm not sure if anybody holds has the entire answer. I have my own theory. I walk past them every day. I take my walks. I go by a swamp. I go by a pond. I go by a lake. Every one of them has cypress. Every one of them has tamarack. And they drop their needles. My theory is they grow in such poor soil that it's just hard to keep the needles green all the way through. Let's go ahead and drop them. And there you see the tiny cones. Cypress, you ever seen where cypress grow? They really are they're actually in the water. Yeah, the same reason probably. Isn't that great? I always feel like tamaracks are telling all the deciduous trees, you know, you think you put on a color, just wait till you see mine. And so they save it for last. But there are places where you still see this today. Here we are, November 9th. But for the most part, no, it's over. Tamarack time this year was pretty much the last week of October. There you see more of the tamaracks. Okay, but there are trees that break the rules and go after the tamarack. One of them is weeping willow. We got weeping willow around your yard, or if you just drive around town, you'll see many weeping willows that still have their leaves. Why? Because weeping willow is non-native. And you might say it has not been adjusted to our calendar. There's a weeping willow right there. But there's a few others. Cottonwood. Cottonwoods are more common to the west of us, but they do. I see them in Carleton County in quite a few places. And as of yesterday, I saw some cottonwoods that still have leaves. Then there's silver maple. Silver maple will hang on to leaves as long as they can, but it will eventually drop. Aspen, same way. Many aspens will continue to hang on to leaves when the other ones have dropped, and it's not unusual to see scenes like this. This picture was not taken today, it was taken a week ago, but I could see things like this today as I was driving in. There are always a few that last longer than others, but the one that really stands out right now, and it's really kind of unfortunate, is this one. The European buckthorn. This is the time of year to see just how common it is, and we don't always appreciate that. Okay. Anyway, there are some areas around I don't even want to drive by at this time because of how common it is.
The only thing it helps is that you can actually cut it down and see it because it's so obvious.
Yeah, exactly. This is the time to get out there and do it. Yeah. Anybody know someone who has luck using goats to control?
I've heard about it, yeah.
You know somebody who's done it?
Well, I know someone who, yeah. has
Yeah,
those.
I heard of it a few times. Matter of fact, there are people in Carleton County who raise goats and they rent them out just for that. But it's here, it's still here. Okay, there's the buckthorn again. Now, here's the weirdos. There are 3 trees that go through the winter, 3 species of deciduous trees that go through the winter that keep their brown leaves all winter. Now, if you live near a woods, you probably have seen. One of them is our famous sugar maple. Most sugar maples don't. They drop their leaves. Most. But there's a few that hang on to their leaves. Okay? Sugar maples. Next. There's a closer look at the leaves of the sugar maple in the wintertime. Ironwood. Ironwood is probably the one of the 3 that's most consistent. I have lots of ironwood in my woods, and I don't expect it to ever drop its leaves completely. So a few years when I did, I just decided I'm going to wait until they do drop their leaves. And it happens in April or May when the new leaves are coming.
Wow.
So they do definitely keep the leaves all winter. And the third one is red oak. Now, red oak, I have lots of red oak around my place. Most of the red oaks have dropped their leaves, though they were a little bit slower than the other trees. They have dropped the leaves, but not all. This is a young red oak. And for some reason, the young red oaks will keep their leaves a lot more than will the older ones. If you go south here, has anyone ever been to Crex Meadows in the wintertime? And they have a tree down there called pin oak. Have you seen all the leaves that are on the pin oaks in the wintertime down there? Yeah, there are some that will do that. But with us, it's a red oak. I tried to figure out why. Why do those 3 keep them? I have all kinds of explanations. I don't think anybody can give an explanation. One of the ones I was given is that it was hereditary. That kind of makes sense. Another one was that it's a tree's way of keeping from drying out. If you hold on to the leaves, they won't lose moisture as much. Don't know what it is.
I've got one explanation about browsing by Pleistocene megafauna.
Yeah, I've heard that one too. That by keeping the leaves on, they discourage being eaten by deer and so forth. Well, that's true. We would kind of expect that at other trees.
Right.
But yeah, they haven't told us a secret yet. And here's what it looks like on a winter day. Well, if you want red in November, it's not too late. I saw it. today with this plant. Along my road, I have a lot of raspberry, and raspberry, yes, will keep its red leaves quite late into AutWin. Like I said, I saw it today, but the one that really stands out with red, I can have with blackberry. I live a little bit southwest of Duluth, and I'm in an area where there are blackberries. Duluth doesn't have much blackberries, and this is a beautiful plant.
There was a bit of blackberry for about 4 years in the middle of Hartley, which had to be walked through, and there it was, and I go pick those berries, man.
Aren't they great?
I grew up in the Seattle area, which is full of blackberry.
Blackberries are wonderful. What I find when I go out and pick them, nobody competes with me. Does anybody know what keeps most humans away from picking blackberries? It's not very sharp. It's very sharp thorns. Yes, if you're going to pick blackberries, wear long sleeves. Okay. Anyway, look how bright red they are. And I saw something like this as recently as this morning. Blueberry, same thing. Blueberry waits until late, and then yes, it will turn quite bright red. As does this one, which is easy for us to pass right by because it's so small. Bunchberry, also known as Canada dogwood, which only stands about this tall. But yes, it does get a reddish or reddish purple color at this time. And then there is the wild rose. Wild rose, yes, still has some red. So if you want reds, they're still out there. But don't look at the trees, look at some of the shrubs. The wildflowers of AutWin are few. I put a few on this list here that we probably exaggerated because they're probably gone by now. But they could still be there. One of them is the New England aster. New England aster is another example. That is a flower of the prairie country. However, there are places around where you can still find it. I always find a few places along the Munger Bike Trail where they will bloom, and they last a long time as we get into the cold. That purple flower down there. The one next to it, sneezeweed, is another one. Sneezeweed will last very late in the season. Does anybody know why it's called sneezeweed? A wonderful piece of trivia. Okay. All right, here's the story I heard. It's not as common here as it is further west, but it was growing in areas where there was a lot of coal miners. And the coal miners would come out from working and they'd get all this dust in their face and their mouth and their nose and so forth. And they wanted to clear it out, so they would grab this plant, excavate their nose, and would cause them to sneeze. So it became known as sneezeweed. It's a type of sunflower. And speaking of the type of sunflower, another one that lasts very long, and I saw this as recently as last week, Maximilian sunflower. Another example of a sunflower that's more common to the west, but will linger late in the season. You notice the fence in the background. The picture was taken along the Munger Bike Trail near Carlton. Okay. Yep.
Late, not right now, but in the last month, I see this tall white plant. It's, I don't know if it's a sunflower, it's tall. It looks kind of like this. Wait, you have no.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. What do they call it? Tall or giant daisy. That's what you're talking about. Anybody have that around your place? There's a wonderful growth around Renshaw. It grows about this big, but it's a kind of daisy. Yeah, very late in the season. Yeah, oh, that's wonderful. However, I think we said, with the exception of dandelion, the last flower that I see virtually every year, including as late as today, is this flower. I have no idea why, because I don't think of it as a fall flower. It comes to bloom very early in the summer. It's just very hardy. It just keeps on going and going and going. And you might see seeds like this as we get further along. And then there is another plant which is really cool right now, and I saw many times today, and that's this. That's asparagus. That's the same asparagus that grows in our garden. Well, it escapes and grows in the wild, and this time of year it turns a very yellow gold color. It's just beautiful. And you wonder, what is this vibrant bush along the side of the road? Well, if you have good eyes, take a close look, you'll see there are some tiny red berries among it as well. But this is asparagus. I said I saw it as recently as today if I was driving here. You see some of those red berries? Yeah. Now that you see what to look for, now you will see it. All right. Well, the one neat thing about AutWin is that we look into the woods and we can see some plants that we wouldn't have seen with the rest of the summer because of all the other leaves and because of snow in the winter. Plants like this, the panica. Oh, hepatica is a fabulous plant. First flower to bloom. I've been keeping records of spring flowers to bloom for eons, and there's never been an exception. This has always been number one. Why is it always number one? Because it gets off to a head start. It keeps its leaves all winter. And other spring wildflowers are putting up their leaves to try to grow and to blossom. This one already has a jump start on it by having its leaves green. And then there is, let's a closer look at hepatica. Pyrola. Pyrola is a flower that blooms in July. We don't get a lot of flowers blooming in the woods in July. But pyrola is one, and yes, it keeps its green leaves at this time. As does wintergreen. Wintergreen is best known because of the reddish berries. I'll go into that in a moment. So this is what the leaves look like. And then there's twin flower. Another one that keeps its green all winter. I do not have a twin flower in my woods, but I took this picture over at J. Cook State Park where there's some pretty good growth. Mosses really stand out at this time of year. Okay, is it true that mosses grow on the north sides of trees? I used to ask that question to my students. I said, okay, let's go out in the woods and find out. We go out in the woods and we look around and we find, yeah, they do grow on the north sides of trees, but they also grow on the east and the west and the south. So we concluded that mosses grow on the outside of the tree. Here's another example, growing on rocks. Trees and rocks, and there's one more. Trees and rocks. This is something you would not see once we get a snow cover. Okay. And the third one is, of course, logs. Oh, I just love walking through the woods at this time. Has anybody taken a walk in the woods in the last couple of months? It's spectacular. And these things really show up. And there's a lot more kinds of mosses than we might think. But I listed here only two kinds. One we call the Polyturchium moss, which is quite a bit taller than most, but if there's a snow cover, we probably wouldn't see it. And then there's one we call a feather moss, a feather moss. And once again, once we get the eye for it, we'll start looking around and we'll see it. Something else we will see quite often when we get into AutWin are the club mosses. Notice club moss is spelled with one word. What does that mean? You don't know how to spell? It's not me. Say it again.
It's not a moss.
It's not a moss. Club moss is not a moss. It's actually in the same family as the ferns are. Here's one kind of club moss, probably the most common one I have in my woods. And let's go back to this one because there's a story that goes along with it. About 20 years ago, we had a winter, a rather fairly strong winter, but very little snow. We talked, me and my neighbors, as soon as we see it, everybody was, oh, did your septic freeze? Did your well pipe freeze? All that. We had both of them freeze. And that was kind of expected at that time. Why? Because the snow is such a good insulator. We only had about this much snow all winter. And it did get below 50 times that winter. Okay. What happened? A lot of these died. But for the most part, no, they survived all green under the winter. I might mention something else that happened. That was the following spring. The following spring was the closest to silent spring that I'd ever experienced. Spring peepers were almost completely wiped out. Oh, yeah. Fortunately, they've come back. But that's the value of the snow. It's very, very important. But this plant here especially, they grow about this big. They get a snow cover, no problem. Here's one kind, here's another one called ground cedar, looking like this. Then there's another one called bristly club moss. and another one called shining fir moss. Now, an interesting thing about this, the name club moss comes from this growth that sticks up above here. This is where the spores are, the reproductive part. Well, this one right here, this fir moss, doesn't have that. Instead, it has its reproductive structures and these little tiny things right there. I'm always excited to find this because it's such a beautiful club moss and so shiny. And then there is a common club moss, which is it's got a lot of branching onto it. So I usually find 4 or 5 kinds of club mosses in my woods. One of the great things to find right now, if you will go out for a walk, is a fern that is still green. And there are a few. This is the one that's most common, wood fern. I saw this, I was on a walk yesterday where I saw this green, but it's still green. They're not 100% evergreen. They will lose that color as we go through winter. But right now they're green. They're looking like this, and sometimes like this, and sometimes they'll be in rather large clusters. Maidenhair fern. Sometimes. This is not always going to be out there green. I took these pictures last year at AutWin in a place I was, yes, they were still green. Maidenhair fern is confused. A lot of people call other ferns maidenhair fern, but maidenhair fern looks like this. It doesn't grow straight up, it grows in a little circle like a pattern, like such. Then there's rock-cap fern. You want to find a fern that stays green all winter, this is it, rock-cap fern. Jacob State Park and the Munger Bike Trail have a couple of places where there are cliffs go out to in the wintertime. And you can see, yes, this fern has remained green the entire winter. And I saw this as recently as about last week. Mushrooms are pretty much done right now. However, there are some that hang on pretty late. Folio that I have often seen in late October. As I say, I call AutWin from about the middle of October to about the middle of November, so I have frequently seen this in late October. Isn't that a beautiful mushroom? Yeah, growing on the sides of the trees. And then we had this one growing in yards. I took this picture last year during AutWin, right out there in the yard. Shaggy mane mushroom, Coprinus. What's the interesting, well, here there's another name for it. We want to equal Coprinus. You see inky cap. Why are they called inky cap?
They turn into black.
Because they turn into black. What's going on there?
Spores.
They are digesting themselves.
Auto-digest.
When I told that to my 7th graders, they couldn't believe it. So what I would do, and you want to give something to kids that's going to open their eyes about nature. Teach them mushrooms. Boy, they just love it. Anyway, I would take, on the first day of the week, I would take a fresh Coprinus, shaggy name, I'd put it in a clear plastic bag, and I'd hang it in front of the room. By the end of the week, there was nothing in that bag except it digests itself. Should we ask about why? Mother Nature doesn't tell us all the reasons, but we can probably come up with a few theories. One of them is that it is a way to self-fertilize itself. Another one is, if you digest yourself, then nobody else is going to eat you. Armillaria, we had a wonderful time in October, earlier in October this year, of Armillaria. Oh, it was just spectacular. I thought we were going to have a disappointing year and not see this mushroom at all, but boy, we had some great time with it. Armillaria is also known as honey mushrooms, growing in big clusters on the sides of trees. Now you'll notice that a lot of white right there. Okay, some of you have probably learned that if you want to recognize different kinds of wildflowers, you get a wildflower book that goes by the color of the petals. Okay, most of us would probably agree with that. Do you know you can do the same thing with mushrooms? But it's not the color of the cap. It's the color of the spores that come out from underneath. These, right here, these gills are where the spores are produced. You can see a really good example of the yellow right there. The spores fall out of them. If you can collect the spores and see what color they are, then you know what part of the book to look at. And here, the mushroom does it for you. It's dropping the spores onto another mushroom. And you can see that the spores are wet.
Question.
Yes?
Did you see a lot fewer mushrooms this summer when it was so dry?
No. Good question. Mushroom this summer. You're the mushroom man. Did you see much this summer? Anybody else? Did you see much this summer? Mushrooms, there were a few. There was a scattering of varieties. So if I was to list the varieties, it sounds pretty good. But there was not a numerous amount of almost 80 of them. Yeah. However, thanks to September.
Yeah.
Do you know the statistics about September for this year? Wow. Wettest September since 1881. Wow. More than 10 inches of rain. First time that's happened. Ruth was living around here in June of 12 when we had the floods. That was the last time we had a month of 10 inches. What a fabulous September. Well, thanks to that, we had great mushrooms. But October continued that for a while, but it couldn't continue it entirely. I was walking on the Superior Hiking Trail through Jacob State Park a few years ago in November. It was about the middle of November. And I came across these two going side by side. Mid-November. Quite a surprise. We're probably all familiar with this right here. This is the Latin name. The common name is chanterelle. Okay. This is the Latin name for this one. Anybody know the common name of that one? It's called lobster. Lobster.
Oh. Neat.
You want to turn a kid on to nature talk about mushrooms. We had what we call 3 magic mushrooms. One of them was the inky cap, the coprinus that would digest itself. Make you disappear? I mean? Not that much. All right, next, there was this one. Why is that magic? Because what you're really looking at here is a kind of mushroom that has an orange mold on it. The kind of mushroom that grows this orange mold is not edible. But once that orange mold grows on it, it becomes edible. I was teaching a class at the University for Seniors about mushrooms. One of the ladies in there knew a heck of a lot more about eating mushrooms than I do. And she said, oh yes, it's good, it's edible. She said, I have some. I said, I tell you what, you bring it in, you fix it and bring it in and you take the first bite. And I'll follow up. And you know what, it was quite good. Think about that. The mushroom that it grows on is not edible. Once it gets that orange mold on it, it becomes edible. That's magic, isn't it? What's the third magic mushroom? I don't have a picture of it, but I can tell you about it. Blue stain boline. It's a mushroom that looks kind of a lightish, kind of yellowish tan, sort of brownish, yellowish tan. But the moment you break off a piece, instantly in front of your eyes it turns blue.
Yeah.
Now, once again, it's hard to impress 7th graders, but they were impressed with that. All right. Anyway, we're pretty late in the season to find it, but I will let you know that there could still be some out there. You know, we've got quite a bit of rain so far in November. Statistically, I was checking it this morning, we are more than twice what we usually get at this time in November. So something could still be out there. And then there's, of course, puffballs. You can't find anything else in Rockville, but you'll find puffballs. Lots of them. It's really good fall for puffballs, and it will continue to be like this. And then if you get real lucky, you might find this.
Oh, I love those.
Wow, the giant puffball. This one was one that I stole from another school. They had it at their school. Yeah, it was about that big. They had it at their school, and they didn't know what to do with it. And they just kind of stuck it outside, and I came along and I grabbed it from them. This one, however, I saw in a person's yard.
Yeah.
That was just last year, and I went out there and photographed it. You see the leaf next to it as size. This one is a younger one. I do not eat giant puffballs. Does anybody here who does? Because I hear this stage, I hear this stage, you slice it up like this. Yeah. And then there are these, the shelf fungus. They'll stay out there all winter. Artist fungus. Why is it called artist fungus? Yeah, what part? See, underside. Turn over the underside, and you can draw on it and so forth. And then I love ones like this, horse's hoof fungus. What I love about this, the horse's hoof fungus, it's pretty obvious that somebody thought that looked like a horse's hoof. Okay. What I love about this is this. What happened there? Well, the tree was growing, the fungus grew out on it, the tree fell down. So the mycelia inside the log continued to grow and put out another growth that was parallel to the ground. So this was parallel to the ground when it was standing, and this is parallel to the ground after it has fallen. Yes. Turkey. Next.
Those are cool.
Okay, these are all ones that we can still find late in the season. Oysters might be pretty late for oysters, but I have seen them in November, like this.
What's that one?
And then there's this wonderful one, chaga. If anybody is a person, there's a few examples of this. If you don't know of a good blueberry patch, do you tell anybody? Okay. If you know of a good trout stream, do you tell anybody? No. If you know of a good place where chaga grows, do you tell anybody? No. Do we have anybody here who consumes chaga? What do you agree with me? You wouldn't tell anybody where it is? You agree with it? Alright, I was giving a program up in Ely, and we were talking about this, and there was a gentleman in the group there. According to him, chaga has put another 20 years in his life. He couldn't believe it. All the good things you can get from chaga. Doesn't it look like this a rotty growth on the side of the tree?
Yeah.
You break it off. Matter of fact, I went out and did break it off. I had to use either an axe or a saw. Throw it up, and then crush it up and make it into a tea.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's, I don't know. Has it put another 20 years on my life? I don't know. Okay. And there's another look at the chaga. Then there are some tiny ones, eyelash fungus. I've seen this in November. I just love this one. About the size of your fingertip. And you get down close and take a look and you see why it's called eyelash. Bird's nest. Gee, why is that called bird's nest? Why is it called bird's nest? You know, we're the Audubon group. Well, maybe I should throw another question at you. Why does it grow like that? Here's the theory. The shape of that, quote, nest is such that if raindrops hit in there, it knocks out those things in the middle. And the things in the middle are where the spores are. Okay. Jelly fungi. You want to take a really great walk. I don't find too many people who do this. But I would suggest the next rainy day we get in November, go take a walk in the woods. You're going to find there's not going to be too many people who will join you. But take a walk in the woods on a rainy day, and this is the best time there is to see the jelly fungus trees. Jelly fungus stays there. It's really tough. It stays out all winter. But it's got to absorb some moisture. And so this is what I usually find, this stuff right here. This picture right here was taken last year during the walk I took on the 15th of November, a rainy day. And then there is slime mold, which we might be finding. But something else that's always going to be in the woods is the lichens. Lichens are very tough. They dry up during this drought year we have, but as soon as they get some rain, they absorb it and they get very colorful. This is one kind of lichen. Here's another one, sunburst, bushy lichen, and more. A combination of that. Look at this. And here's lichen. And of course, British soldier lichen. A lot of people say that if we have lichen growing in our area, we are very fortunate because what is lichen? An indicator of
Good air.
good air quality. Exactly. I used to take my students outside and we'd find lichen and say, okay, everybody now take a deep breath. Okay, then we go out in the woods and we find it and we all kiss the branches that happen like this. Let's go to some of the berries. Wintergreen berry is out there. Matter of fact, some of the best reds there are right now are the berries. Rose, I saw this as recently as this. Now, you do something with rose hips?
Drive Jeremy out of that too.
There's somebody, there are often people who will make something else out of it. They'll steep it into tea, yes. Yeah, very high in vitamins, very high in vitamin C, more than you get from oranges. But I've also been told you have to wait until after the frost to really get it well. And here's our high bush cranberry again. Yes, they're still out there. Mountain ash, regardless if it's this non-native mountain ash in somebody's yard here in Duluth, or if it's a native one, they both have the red berries now. Crab apples are outstanding, Ray. I can't believe how loaded the trees are. I'm going to be watching them all winter. And if you want to see some really cool birds, Bohemian waxwings, pine grosbeaks, and so forth, you know what? It was really great to watch.
Last year,
Crab apples.
Pine groceries.
Okay. Anyway, we're going to have a
We're going
great
to see them this year too. Yeah.
and that's what they look like when we get further into winter, but it doesn't stop critters from eating them. Winterberry holly at the end has been a disappointment. I had to search pretty hard last week to find any at all. And then when I found it, it just looked like this. Winterberry holly grows in the swamps. Unlike the holly we see at Christmas time, it does not eat green leaves all winter. And these berries usually don't even last till Christmas. They usually get eaten pretty quickly. Another example of winterberry. What an oak time we had earlier in the fall. Where I live, I'm surrounded by red oaks. And all of them, it seemed like had a bumper crop of acorns, and all of them dropped them on the top of my metal roof. so it was quite a loud one. However, that pretty much has passed. But the acorns are still huge numbers. I see so many acorns. Now, somebody can answer my question here. I see so many acorns in my yard. I cannot take a step without stepping on them. Then why do the squirrels come to my feeder to get sunflower seeds? They got all the acorns they want. Why do they do it?
It's the challenge.
Take a walk in the field now in AutWin. Here's the goldenrods. This is what they came from last. They came from a yellowish golden plant in the fall, and now they look like this. Same with the asters.
Yeah.
And the milkweeds. Wow, fabulous. Yes. When I drive down the road and see milkweed patches, you probably have seen my car. It waves or moves around because I am looking at all the milkweed patches. But isn't that great? Look at that. They produce this fluffy seed. One of the things I find so remarkable about milkweeds is you look at those pictures. That look at all like the flower that it came from. Entirely different. And when the milkweed blooms in July, it doesn't put out its seeds here until October. Looking like this. This plant, on the other hand, fireweed, also blooms in July, and it also puts out its seeds rather early in the season. White clematis, a vining plant. You know where that is? Go take a look at it right now. It really looks terrific. Autumn willow. A lot of people don't even know there is a willow that produces its seeds in the fall. We usually think of pussy willows in the spring. And then, of course, there's the butterflies. Morning cloak, Milbert tortoiseshell, and cotton tortoiseshell are all butterflies that are hibernate for the winter. And yes, they crawl into a little crack somewhere and they stay there all winter. Cabbage butterfly and sulfur are two that last late in the season and they don't hibernate. And they do succumb to the cold. But then there's this one. I have been seeing dozens of these on my windows around the lights every day. Recently as last night I saw.
Yeah.
I call them World Series balls because they show up at about that time. This year they even outlasted the World Series.
Yeah.
Okay? There are two species that are most common, spanworm and linden looper, that's named after a basswood. Those are the two that are most common, but there are more. And they're amazing. They don't have a digestive system. They don't do any eating. They just breed at this time. Yes, question?
Well, I'm asking him about ours. No, we're just asking, I was just asking him if that's what we're still seeing.
Oh, probably. As I said, I saw them as recently as last night, and with the weather going to be as it is, we'll probably continue to see them. The tiger Isabel Avalon. We had a pretty good year with woolly bears this year. Woolly bears are amazing. No, they don't predict any winter, but they do something even better. They curl up without a cocoon and survive the whole winter. I think that's pretty cool. Okay. This is what they turn into next summer if they survive. How about the ladybugs? We had both kind, the Asian ladybug and the native ladybug this year. This picture was taken down at Park Point in November.
Oh, and
And
the
so is
fingers.
this one. They congregate under some of the logs that are washed up on the shore. Get a clear day in November and go for a walk on the beach, and you'll see something. Whirligig beetles stay active as long as they can and before it freezes over. Here's a closer look at them. They live on the surface. They're amazing. I have them in my bay. Some days I go out, usually they're there every day. Some days I go out there and they're not there at all. 2 days later, they're back. But I did a little research and I found out that what they do is they move around at night. They go to other places and then come back. And they climb up on the shore for the winter. Giant water bugs. They also live out on the water, and when the water starts getting cold in the fall, they take off on a flight. Sometimes, anybody ever seen these hanging around your light bulbs, your driveway or such? Yeah. That's their dispersal flight that they're doing, and they get confused. Leaf hoppers, very common as we get into the fall. I used to take my students out in October to collect insects. This is the one we would collect the most. Bald-faced hornets. How many have been seeing things like this lately? To me, summer isn't summer if I don't have a bald-faced hornet nesting in my yard. I had two this year, one on the garage and one on the tree. And it looks like this right now. Soon it's going to look like this. It starts to break up, and then we see this. It doesn't survive. Nothing is in there at this time. Where is she? She's the only survivor of that, the queen. She's impregnated. She goes off. She goes under a log and hides there somewhere. I used to tell my students that as we got into late October, and I'd say, okay, let's go out in the woods and let's find her. Now think about that. One day we actually found her.
Wow.
Yes, exactly. 3 days of discovery. And sometimes they come to us. Now, I was eating an apple and I realized, hey, wait.
Chompy, chomp.
That's the yellow jackets. They just love apples. Green darter dragonflies are migratory. There has some great flights at Hawk Ridge this year. However, the other one, the autumn meadow hawk, is not migratory. They will succumb to the cold. Crane flies are often flying at dusk if it's clear. They like to do this flight in the sunlight. It's kind of a battle for dominance for the females. And then there's the woolly aphids, the white stuff. I haven't seen too much of this far. Has anybody else seen it? It's on alder trees. It's a kind of aphid. Many people look at it and they think it's a fungus. But no, it's an aphid. Sorry. Yeah, a group of aphids. Goldenrod boas. Yes, there are some spider webs that hang on late in the season, but not very many. There's this one. I love this in the woods. That right there is a spider that made this web. There's a closer look at it. Then there's this one that makes a big web, but it's a very tiny spider, Mandura. I was at a building in Cloquet one day, and the person working there said something about, what's that spider we have out there? And I said, what spider? So I went out and took a look, and right there in the corner was a spider. So I got up and took a closer look at it, and then I took a closer look at it. Cat face orb weaver is as similar to Charlotte, and Charlotte's web again is part of the country. However, incidentally, they don't last. They will succumb to the cold. This is something you can see often very late into the season. There's a spider that lives in that web, has one here and here. Now notice that leaf right there, you see that? That is, and same thing right there, that's that one plant I told you about, ironwood. It keeps its leaves, and the spider takes advantage of it, makes a web right nearby. Sometimes you get lucky and you see frost on a funnel web on the ground. Look at that.
Wow.
And then, if you get real lucky, you find frost on orb webs. Don't expect that to happen too often. I have seen orb webs as late as November. What happens in the fall with spiders, though, the babies take off when they travel. They throw out a thread from their spinneret, and then they use that like a kite to help them travel to different places. We probably have all seen these threads out there. I call them travel threads. They look like this. Yeah, they're quite common. We don't see the spider on them very often, but it tells us that the spiders have been moving. And if the weather gets cold or cloudy or rainy, you might not see them. But if we get a clear day, they're very much out there looking like this and this. Somebody asked me about the fishing spider in winter. They climb up on shore and they go under the leaves and they spend the winter there as adults.
Very good. Unfortunately, winter has come, and we are at our time.
Right there, that spider is on ice. Yeah, I was out ice skating on our swamp. Garter snakes can still be out of this one. I've seen them in the river. As is red-bellied snakes. One day I was down at my dock, early November, and there was a leopard frog there. Usually they go underwater. And of course there's the deer. Deer mice trying to get into our house at this time. Big brown backs can still be seen. I've seen them out flying in November. What are they flying for? They're looking for this giant wildlife. Northern flying squirrels. Anybody have flying squirrels at your bird feeder? Aren't they great? I just love them. Okay, this is the northern. We get mostly this southern flying squirrels. Picture was taken in November. Put sunflower seeds out at night. Make sure you put the sunflower seeds out after the gray squirrels have gone to sleep. And then sit back and watch. Chipmunks, recently, as about 3 days ago, I was still seeing chipmunk in my yard. And they gather the food. This is a real true hibernator, Franklin ground squirrel, woodchuck. Snowshoe hare turning white. There was a year, maybe 15 years ago, where we had a very late AutWin all the way into December, and I was biking on an under bike trail, and I think I saw 6 snowshoe hares that were entirely white.
Oh,
Unfortunately, there was no snow.
yeah, no smell.
So it didn't work. Bird nest shows up. Iberial nest, hawk nest, yellow, occasionally a yellow-rumped warbler. I've seen them in November. Jungles, tree sparrows, Lapland longspur, picture taken on Park Point. Snow bunting, picture also taken at Park Point. Ball field. Blackbirds and grackles. Many of them. And then pine siskins and red bulls. I've seen pine siskins, but this year I still haven't seen red bulls. Same way with pine grosbeak, I still haven't seen it, but I expect this soon. Northern shrike. I saw one as recently as about 3 days ago. And here's one with its food. Bald eagles. The most common raptor over Hawk Ridge right now is bald eagle. And they'll continue for the rest of the month. Red-flag hawks. Quite common in the beginning of November. Best time here to see it. There's a red-flag hawk. This is the red-tailed hawk. Fall bass. You know, I love following the results of Hawk Ridge, but they never tell you the number of owls. I asked, why not? They said, because that's done at the vast banding station. And if they publish those results, people are going to come and want to go to the banding station. Ringneck ducks are late migrants, as are wood ducks. Canada geese, I saw a flock again today. Not unusual. Tundra swans, I saw a flock just a couple days ago. Like this. Trumpeter swans, they're not so much of a flocking bird, but they're pretty easy to see around here. Otters, active on top. This picture was taken in November, just about the time the ice was forming on the lake. Beavers remain active at this time. They're out cutting trees and baking caches and fortifying their lodges. Best time of year, I think, to see beavers is in November. There's the ice starting to form. And once the ice starts to form, go out and look along the edge of the ice. You'll see some interesting things. That's a painted turtle under the ice. There's a snapping turtle under the ice. And that is a footprint on the ice. As near as I can tell, the ice got slushy and this was a trunk or swan that came walking by. That black thing you see there is my sunglasses. Raccoon leaves its tracks without even there being snow. I call that a frost track. And then, of course, there's the deer. This is cool. You get a chance. The best time to see tracks is early in the season, and on ice is the best time. Well, this deer, I don't know, looks like it never knew there was ice. It just wanted to walk out on the snow. All of a sudden, it started to slide.
Yeah.
Went through what I call a deer dance. There's another one, and another one, and another one. And here's the wolf. They did the same thing. Picture taken at Sac Zim. This was the pack of wolves, and they did some sliding around as well. And here is a confused muskrat. Muskrats should not be climbing around on top of the ice, but that's what this one was doing. And here is a raven, and it's kind of running across this ice and taking off. Finally, AutWin comes to an end. You get these wonderful snows. Oh, doesn't that make you look forward to something? Yes. Covering all those crab apples, but also leaving some wonderful signs. Isn't that cool? I love snow rope, and I try to go out and find it every year. Anyway, I told everybody at the beginning that I would go overnight, and I did, and now Jeff is trying to control his anger. But I have a way of redeeming myself. Anybody who puts up with me gets a discount. I was giving a program this summer, and one of the persons in the group said, "You better give a discount after sitting here listening to you the whole time." So, yes. Anyway, it gives you a discount. What's that price say in there? Oh my gosh. $16? How do you feel? Half price.
Wow. Yeah.
If you don't like that, how about $5? Okay, well, I want to give away one, and I'm going to give it away by asking this. Does anybody here have a birthday in AutWin? No, late October or November. What day?
November 2nd.
November 2? Oh, perfect. And here you go. Enjoy. They should have named you. They should have named you AutWin.
That's their new nickname now.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, Jeff is trying to control his hands.
That's all right. Thank you, Larry, for being with us. Let's thank you. All right. We'll hold any questions for you. Can ask your questions in private as you buy one of the books. One note for everybody to remember is we don't have a program in December. So let me be the first to wish you happy holidays. I guess it's pretty early to do that. And we'll see you again in January.
Thank you.